Hello everyone. Welcome to class number 1 of week 3. There will be 2. Hopefully this will be a little quicker than our other lectures. So we're looking at young adult materials, of course, and this week we are going to be looking at reading habits of young adults. We're going to be talking about romance literature, romance novels for young adults, and then we will look at mysteries and fantasy. So our learning outcomes from this week. You should be able to learn about the types of literature that young adults prefer. Fantasy is a big one. Yay, I love fantasy. Learn about young adults' reading habits and perceptions, which are certainly changing in the past few years. There's a lot of competition from digital content. Learn about popular young adult romantic fiction writers and some authors who write them. And then in the second half of this lecture, which may or may not go up today, you're going to learn about young adult mysteries, popular mysteries, and authors of mysteries. You're going to learn about fantasy and science fiction titles on your required or suggested reading list. Several of you have already mentioned fantasy writers that you like. That's great. Keep reading them. They're great. All right, so what do teens read? According to a publisher's weekly article based on a 2009 survey, they prefer fiction, 87%. They like series a lot. I see this in my own library. Certainly like romances, fantasy, adventure, mysteries, suspense, thrillers. Obviously, if it's Publishers Weekly doing the survey, they're surveying readers, and so it leaves out, who's not reading and why, and what can we do to get those non-readers. But it gives you a good idea of what our readers are interested in that they're already readers. Also, this Teen Reading Habits and Perceptions survey from 2008, 20 public and school libraries participated, and it is available online for the general public. With over 1,000 responses from teens aged 12 to 18, you get a good background of what teens are interested in. It's a nice sample size. The previous Smart Girl survey of 2007 surveyed young women ages 11 to 14 and had over 1,100 participants, though obviously if you're surveying girls, you're going to get a little different spin or spiel than if you're surveying a mixed group. And as I've mentioned, making sure we've got our young men reading is super important because they are scoring lower across the globe on reading tests. Findings from the 2 surveys, and some of this should be obvious. I feel like Captain Obvious saying these things, but people forget. Teens who see family members reading at home read more often. I think that is part of why I have raised 2 young men who read. Online content and periodicals are also very popular. I'm very surprised to hear my teenagers say they've been reading GQ. I kind of thought that was an odd choice, but my 18-year-old in particular reads it a lot, but he's reading it online, which is why I don't see it. Young adults' interest in pure YA lit decreases with age unless they have a case of arrested development like I do. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, most popular genres are fantasy, mystery, true stories, and of course, our romance books. The majority of young adults prefer fiction over nonfiction, and then, of course, our graphic novels, which are huge in my library. I enjoy graphic novels, but I tell you, I do struggle with manga, so when you read that manga, I'm interested in hearing your reactions. So let's talk about romance novels. I used to love romance novels, and I have been off of them for a while. It might be because I'm bitter and old. Actually, I do still like them. I just don't read them as often. Though I need to read a few more up-to-date ones because this is something that I get asked for frequently in my library. So some people consider them a subgenre of reality fiction. I certainly would call it reality fiction. It's third in popularity on the YALSA survey, coming in at 39%. It's a frequent topic, even in fantasy or adventure books, so romance shows up in a lot of places. Of course, it discusses the trials and tribulations of being in love, and a lot of this has to do with wish fulfillment. All of us desire to be loved and to love others, and so this is part of it, especially our kids who are particularly lonely or who have not started dating but are interested. So I think the romance novels, that wish fulfillment is an important part of these books for kids. Obviously, romance novels can be a single novel, like Jason and Kyra, which is a book that tons of my girls read, or it may be part of a series that are super popular. Those are going to be on the next slide. Most romance novels are read by girls and told from the girl's point of view, but not all. I want to tell you, at least once a year, I have a young man come in and tell me that he wants some romance. So keep that in mind. We have all sorts of kids who are interested. Mostly girls, but you get a variety of kids who are interested in romance. A couple that are from the male perspective, The Summer I Got a Life by Fink. That was in 2009. And Every Day by Levithan in 2012. It's from Justin's perspective. I would pretty much recommend anything from Levithan, by the way. Romance Writers of America suggest that romance novels should have two basic elements. Of course, the central love story. You can have other things going on, but if you're going to classify it as a romance novel, that should be the central theme. And of course, it should be emotionally satisfying with an optimistic ending. It's not really romantic or fun if they break up at the end or other bad things happen. So I kind of agree with this. That's part of the fun of a romance novel. So the qualities of good romance novels, just like any other novel, you want some believable characters. You want something beyond just the romance, something there that can't be just the only part of the story. There has to be some other conflict or drama going on to make it interesting. Romance novels are changing a great deal in that they can include sexuality without negative repercussions. That's much more popular. I know that we have a wide variety of religious views in this class and in our society. I can tell you, as a parent of teenagers, I have tried to impress upon my children waiting as long as possible and being careful and consent and all that stuff, but I have not been able to stop them. So having this depicted in literature as it's not terrible, but you should be careful, I think is great. It's a good message. Also, keep in mind there's an article on teen sexuality in your readings this week. Take a peek at that. As again, we all have different views, but teens, to a large degree, or about 50% of them, are sexually active by 16, I think. Anyway, I know I've read that statistic somewhere. So do read that article as well to give you some more background. Some classic YA romance novels. 17th Summer by Maureen Daly, that came out in 1942. I did read that as a teenager, and I haven't reread it for our class. I don't really wish to. I think that's a Pollyanna romance, as I recall. If I Love You, Am I Trapped Forever by Emmy Kerr. Emmy Kerr is sometimes kind of depressing. And this little quote might let you know how depressing Emmy Kerr is. Because they both feel intense love, but there is no way either one can express it. She is not with the man she loves, and he loves her, but realizes she loves someone else. Suffering. That's what love is all about. How depressing is that? Of course, most of us have experienced unrequited love, so that is a realistic aspect. Like I said, Emmy Kerr is kind of depressing sometimes. Anyway, and Forever, this is classic and still gets challenged or banned in our country. Forever by Judy Blume. I did read that as a teen. I actually reread it a couple years ago and obviously haven't reread it for our class this time. But it's an honest view of one girl's sexual experience, and it's still popular. It's controversial, of course, because she has sex with her boyfriend in high school, and people are upset that she would do that. And they're also upset that nothing bad happens to either of them. But her struggle in Forever is that she decides at the end she doesn't want to stay with him and then feels some level of guilt. So I think it's a very realistic portrayal of this young woman's first experience. Some popular YA romance and sexuality novels include books by Sarah Dessen. She's usually very light, though she has some serious novels too. Included on that list are Saint Anything, Just Listen, The Truth About Forever, What Happened to Goodbye. You might even include Dreamland on there, but that has some relationship violence in it, so it's a kind of a serious topic, less so much romantic. Weetzie Bat by Francesca Leah Block, who was very, very popular for a while and does not seem to be as popular. I personally didn't like her stuff very much. Felt a little drug-addled to me, but I'm expressing my personal opinion. I don't want it to push you off of something because she was very influential for a while. Weetzie Bat follows the adventures of Weetzie Bat and her LA friends Dirk Duck and My Secret Agent Lover Man. And I read those a long time ago and have not picked them up again. Romiette and Julio by Sharon Draper. Hopefully you know Sharon Draper's name. If you don't know her name, you should. And honestly, I think Romeette and Julio is one of her least effective novels. I think it was one of her first ones out. Anyway, it is a parallel read to Romeo and Juliet. So if you have an English teacher who wants a parallel read or is interested in doing some sort of parallel reading with classic literature, I would recommend this as one to go with it. She also wrote Tears of a Tiger and that whole series, and I can't remember any of the other titles off the top of my head, but very popular with my teens, my students at my school. All right, I cannot say enough good things about The First Part Last by Angela Johnson. I'm not a big YA realistic fiction reader, and this one sat around for a while, but it had several award stickers on it, so I finally picked it up. This is a book that I picked up after the school bell rang at 3:15 and was almost late picking up my kids because I sat there and read it straight through. So, First Part Last by Angela Johnson. Bobby's carefree teenage life changes forever when he becomes a father and must care for his baby daughter. Though this one reads like a mystery because you can't figure out why he is the primary caregiver until the end. It's fantastic. And it's a very quick read. I would definitely call Jenny Han a bit of a chick lit. It's the Summer I Turned Pretty series. I have only read one of these. I enjoyed it. It was light, fun, and I had no interest in reading the other ones. But this might be stylistically great for many of your young ladies or your young gentlemen who are interested in romance. So, in the series are The Summer I Turned Pretty, It's Not Summer Without You, We'll Always Have Summer. You can learn more about the author at her website, Dear Jenny Han. Sarah Dessen has said she has everything a girl wants in a summer. If you're interested in the book trailer for the series, The Summer I Turned Pretty is on YouTube. Looking for book trailers on YouTube is always a good idea if you're trying to sales pitch to students or patrons, so keep that in mind. Other titles in series that deal with romance or sexuality, The Au Pairs by Melissa de la Cruz. You may recognize that author's name. She also wrote a series called The Blue Bloods, which is a vampire series, which is kind of fun and smutty and just lots of fun. Three Girls with Three Agendas as Au Pairs in the Hamptons. That's The Au Pairs by Melissa de la Cruz. The Gallagher Girls by Zoe Dean. I don't have these in my library and need to get on that because I know they would go. Millions of fans love the Gallagher Girls series. Say that 10 times fast. Gossip Girl. Oh my goodness, these fly off the shelves. I think I have all of them. I need to go back and double check. These are by Cecily von Ziegesar. I probably butchered that name, sorry. The lives of privileged young adults who go to a boarding school in Manhattan's Upper East Side. Very obviously fantastical for our kids here in South Carolina. However, they just really enjoy them. And of course, there was a TV show of the same name, which sort of piqued kids' interests in these titles. So they are quite popular. Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants is a little bit past its prime. The books are still great. They just have fallen out of popularity because other things have gotten popular. However, I still am able to sell this to kids on occasion, especially kids who haven't seen the movie and then want to. It follows four girls in their sophomore year in high school through 4 summers, ending with the summer following their freshman year of college. And in the interest of honesty, I read the first one and didn't want to read any of the other ones, not because they weren't good, just I tend to try to read as much as possible across series as opposed to through series so that I can keep recommending stuff to my students. All right, so if you get to your library and you realize you need to beef up your YA romance titles because you don't have enough or you're getting asked for a whole bunch and you don't have them, you might want to try the Young Adult Romance Writers website. So www.ionromance.com/youngadult. I'll post these slides so you can just click on that. And of course, I hope you're familiar with Goodreads. If you go to www.goodreads.com and go to Young Adult Romance, you can also, if you have a favorite young adult romance novel, I love the recommended reads by Amazon. So you put in the book that you already like, and then it'll recommend similar things or people also bought with this. That's another way to look. And of course, use your book jobbers. I am most familiar with Follett, but if I can call my Follett rep and say, hey, can you give me all the top young adult romance novels from the past 3 years? Send me a list. My book jobber will do that. And then I can just go through and like get rid of stuff that I don't want. And that's easier for me than creating the list from scratch. But it depends on how much money you get. But keep that in mind. There are a bunch of different ways to create your YA lists. Okay, so that's the first half of this week. That was much faster, right? Okay, I'm getting a little better. And I will do my best to try to get the second half up also today, just so you have a little extra time to view these things. So at least we've got our first part up on Monday. Our second part up will be up by the latest on Wednesday evening, so you have enough time to view. Hopefully you've taken the time to view our first 4 videos. If you have not, please go back because there's a ton of material in them. This one's a little shorter, so you're welcome.